All right, hello everyone. We're going to be doing yet another Scuffed Walls tutorial. I know it's been a while. I have no excuse, just haven't gotten around to it. But we're going to be doing another tutorial today, and we're actually going to be doing it on the note function and the wall function. Now, the most important thing you're going to do is you're going to want to open up Chrome or Edge or whatever you're using, go to the GitHub, and get the newest version 1.1.2 release. This fixes the definite duration on note, which is kind of important. It is what allows the note itself when we make it in Scuffed Walls. You'll see what I'm talking about. It allows it to actually stay in place for the amount of time that you want it to, instead of just showing up and disappearing like a normal note will. It allows us to keep it longer than you really should be able to. So you're definitely going to want to get this v1.1.2. Now, importing it into Scuffed Walls is the same as it's always been. You're going to, here, I'll open up this in a new window. You're going to want to take your folder and you're going to drag it onto the Scuffed Walls exe. Okay, so now that we have brought our map into Scuffed Walls, you're just going to want to press yes to everything, basically. You're going to want to go into the folder for the song you're working on, and you're going to want to open up that standard scuffedwalls.sw file, basically. And this is our text file. You know what it looks like by now. And we're going to get started with the note function. So the first thing you're going to do, obviously, is figure out the beat you want it to start at. So for me, it is going to be around at beat 100. So we're going to do that, and then I hit our colon, and then type wall. Right? And then from there, we can get started. And so the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to use a definite duration. And what a definite duration is going to do, let me zoom this in. A definite duration are all of these, basically, these two kind of, they're going to make the block, or in this case, the wall, stay for exactly, in this case, we'll do, if we do it. In this case, it's going to be 20 beats, as I just typed right here. And so that means that it's going to ignore the half jump speed or any of the other things that may affect when it will really come in, and it will just do come in and be 20 beats. From there, we can do scale. Now, the normal scale for a wall is one noodle. It's like one noodle unit or something like that. I could be wrong, but it's that general unit of measurement. I don't know. But basically, it's going to be, in this case, because it's 20 beats long, it's going to basically be a one wall, and then it's going to be like very, 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 very long. It's going to be this tiny wall, and it's going to go on long for 20 beats, and we don't really want that. So I'm just going to give it a scale. We do this with our brackets, and we'll just say 2 by 6 by 1. That will make it, I don't know, roughly a rectangle, basically. And so we can press Control S to save here. And then that will, in the Scuffed Walls thing, it will detect the changes and then do stuff. Now our next one, I'm going to want it to float in place, so we can do an animate definite position. And we can just make that, let's say 2. So we, okay, so the way that note works, I guess I have to explain this. Is, let's imagine that this, this is exactly what the player can see, right? You'll have the walls and the blocks coming at you along this little path. It'll be like notes and stuff, right? They're coming towards you. This is a terrible drawing. Well, the way that it's going to work is when we put in a model to wall, it automatically centers it to be right here, right? You're going to have our little model, and it's going to be a Superman logo or something. But the way that note works is it's actually going to center it according to Noodle or something. I could be wrong. I should probably stop spouting false information. But it's something like that. So it's actually going to be to your left. So it'll be like right here. This is where our wall will be. It'll be like over to the left. And so what we want to do is we want to adjust it so it'll be perfectly centered here. I hope that helped. It may not have. And so that's why we're going to put a 2. That's going to move it 2 to the right along the x-axis. And that will center it. So we're going to want to do 2, and then our y, so 5, and then we'll make it 10 back so the player can see it. And then because, again, the last one is time, you just put 0, and then that will put it in the middle, and it will just stay there for the whole thing because nothing's changing. Our next one is we want to rotate it, so we can do a local rotation. This is going to act, oh, no space. And this is going to rotate along the local axis, which I believe is going to be in one of the corners. And we could just make that 0, 0, and then 45, and I'm going to explain what this is going to do. So let's save real quick. And this is a new feature that has actually been added into this version of Scuffed Walls, or maybe a version back or so, where it will tell you if a line is misused. So right here, our animate definite position at line 50, which if you go down is here. is unused, probably misspelled. So we can look in, and I misspelled it on purpose, so I could give this example, and we can fix that. Save again. We're gonna wait for that to update. There we go. See, we fixed it, and now it's not giving us that error. So we'll save it again. And so opening up my drawing thing again, because I feel this is something kind of visual, so I want to make sure that you are able to see it and able to see it well. What we're going to do is I'm going to draw kind of how axes work. So the first thing I want to show you is that in our thing, we have the X as 0, the Y is 0, so it won't rotate along those axes, but it is going to be 45 degrees on the Z. So the way that the directions basically work is you have your standard coordinate plane looking thing, right? We have our y-axis going up and down, and we have our x-axis going this way, and then our z-axis, if we were looking flat on, like if we were just looking at the graph straight, this blue dot would be our z, but really it's like a long line going backwards, going farther away from us. It's just hard to tell in 2D. So we're going to try to 2Dify this just a little bit. Hopefully we can give a little force perspective here. That should make it easier. Okay, and this blue line is our z-axis. So it goes out, right? So we're kind of looking at this from the top corner. And then the way that directions work is when we rotate along the x-axis, the way the object is going to turn is going to go this way, right? It's going to spin around this way. It's going to go, okay, and it's going to be the same on the other side. And then on the y-axis, it's going to spin around this way. It'll turn this way. Okay? Hope that makes sense. That was a terrible drawing. And then when we rotate on the z-axis, which is what we're doing here, we're rotating at 45 degrees, that is turning the object this way. And I hope that makes sense. You'll kind of be able to see it when we get into the thing. But basically how this is going to look once we get it into the game is we're going to have, so this is what it would look like normally. It would just be a rectangle. The rectangle is going to be kind of 45 degrees diagonal, right? So it'll go from this, and then because we rotate at 45, it'll look this way. I hope that makes sense. I will take a screenshot of this, and I will make sure to include it in the docs so that you can reference that for later. Our next thing that we're going to do is we're going to give it, we're going to animate the local rotation so we can actually make the wall spin. So we can just type animate local rotation. And a good thing to note about this is that it will not affect the set local rotation unless we like change it. So it's rotated 45, and as long as we just do something like, so let's zero it out first. So it'll be this. This is going to add on to the local rotation. So this 0, when it's added on, will actually be 45. And as long as we don't touch the z-axis, it will just keep adding the 45, and it will stay at 45 degrees, and we don't have to mess with it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to spin our wall here, and we're going to spin it around the y-axis. So it's going to end up, instead of looking like a cube this way, I want it to look at this corner. So we'll spin it, and it will we'll be looking at the corner. Okay, we're getting there. If this makes sense. So that will allow us to see more of the wall. And so this corner here, right here, that's like up front, will be this corner. We're going to rotate it, right? Let's do that. So this is kind of like keyframing, remember? So we're going to make it 0 because it's not changing on the X. And then we're going to say 45 degrees. And then we can do a 0. And then time, remember, is a scale of 0 to 1. Now I'm going to have it rotate 5 times. So that means that we're going to do it every 0.2. So we'll do 0.2. So 0.2 of its lifespan, basically, it will rotate 45 degrees. And we'll do it again. And this time we're going to do 90. So 0, 90, 0, 0.4. Okay, we're going to end the bracket, comma, make a new one. And then, because I just did 90 degrees, that makes this very easy. We'll just say 0, 135, 0, 0.6. And then our last one, because I want it to end looking at a corner, we'll say 0, 225, 0, and then 1, which means the very end. So we can save that, and it's going to add the wall, and it will do animations, and it will kind of move. And so the next thing we can do with that is we can animate the color. And so somebody had asked me in the comments how to do chroma. It's actually quite easy. doing anything with color or animate color is using chroma. So if we take this animated color we had on our text wall, right, where it kind of went through and did RGB colors, then if we put it in here, then it is actually going to do those colors using chroma, which is quite useful. That's how it does it. So that's how you use chroma. You just do color. And so our next one, we're going to add an animated dissolve. Actually, let me just show you this first. Let me show you what this is going to look like. So let's save it, and then let's open up Beat Saber. So there's Rick Astley. That was our image to wall that we did. So there it is. And see, it's doing chroma, and it's rotating. And it should end on this corner right here, I believe. Yeah. And so did you see how it just disappeared at the end? That's because it has not been told to dissolve it. And I kind of wanted to dissolve so it looks better. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that animate dissolve. So we're going to add an animated dissolve. And this is interesting that it's kind of also keyframing, where you use the D and then time. D is basically how dissolved it is at any one point, I guess, or how far along it is in the dissolving. And then the other one is time, so over a certain amount of time. So we'll start it off at 0, 0, undissolved. And then we'll say it's going to be 1 at 0. And I don't fully understand this, so I'm kind of just going with the little that I do know. And so 1, 0.9. And so it's just going to slowly start dissolving, basically. And so there we go. Now it will dissolve instead of just cutting out. And so our next one is going to be interactable. Interactable is what allows you to actually interact with the blocks. Like if it was gonna, like a fake wall in Mediocre Mapper, right? Where if you, like, you could hit the player and it won't break their combo or mess anything up. You could do interactable and say false. That means that there will be no collider on the wall. And so when it's false, it technically is like more stable. It doesn't really matter in this case because the wall is so simple. But if you had like a big complex wall, doing interactable false would maybe make a difference. You could also do fake false, which means that it literally won't count the wall in the description of the map. So if you looked at let's say Real or Lie that the light designer did, I think it only has like 70 something walls because a lot of them are fake walls, so they just don't count, or it helps to alleviate performance. And then we're going to add a track, and we're going to go over tracks at a later date, but I just want to add it here to show that you can add tracks to this. And so now it's going to dissolve. So let's launch Beat Saber, and let me show you what it's going to look like now. And it dissolves. So that proves that the dissolve works, and that's what it looks like, which can be quite useful. And so that is actually how you use the wall function. You can do, remember we had the definite duration, which makes it stay for 20 beats instead of being affected by the head jump speed. The scale, we had the animate definite position, which makes it float. Local rotation, which is what we rotated. The animate local rotation, which allows us to obviously animate the local rotation. We had the animate color, which we've used before on the for the RGB. And then we had the animated dissolve, which allowed it to dissolve. We made it interactive or non-interactable, and then we used a track. Now we're going to go on and get into the note function, which is pretty similar. So the first thing is I'm going to make it at the same point because I don't really care. In this case, for the example, it works fine. It's just a wall and a note. And so the first thing you're going to do is we cannot use definite duration because this is a block, and we want it to stay around for the right amount of beats. We're going to do definite duration beats. This is going to make the note stay around for the full 20 beats instead of just popping in and disappearing whenever Beat Saber decides that it is time to. And this is also why you need to get the Scuffed Walls 1.1.2 version release, because that actually fixes the definite duration beats. Before, this didn't work, and so the note wouldn't stay for the right amount of time. Now we want it to come in at roughly the right point, so we're going to do definite time, and then we'll just do beats, so it's going to make it the definite time in beats. And then we can scale. You cannot use scale itself natively on the blocks, I guess because they already have a built-in scale, which is whatever a block size actually is, 1 unit of something. But so we can do an animate, we can kind of cheese it, right? So we can animate the scale, and then we can just give it a base size and then have it not change from there. And so that's how you can get around that. So we'll make it kind of big. We're going on a big chunkus of a block, right? We'll do 35 by 35, and then time is 0. And so let's save that, and that's going to give us a giant block. And so we're going to make a float. We're going to use our animate definite position. Not sure why I'm capitalizing here, but you know, it doesn't matter. And so we're going to make it kind of off to the side because this is a pretty big. We don't want it to interfere with anything. So we'll do 20 by 5 by 35 and then 0. So it'll be kind of off to the back right from the player's perspective. And then this is kind of important. So a note in Beat Saber by default is going to want to turn to look towards the player. And we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to disable note look, and we're going to click true. And so what that will do is it will disable the note looking at you. This is a bool, so true or false, and it defaults to false. Then we can do cut direction, which is going to change the direction. So we can either cut up or down. And we're just going to set that to 1, and we'll see what that is when we get there, because I don't actually remember. And then type, this is just the color of the block, and it defaults to 1, which is blue, as we saw. So we're going to make it 0, which will be red. And so then we can give it a track also. Example track, so that's going to be the same track as our wall, and then we'll cover that next. And then we can give it the same animate color, and because walls and notes are pretty similar in how you use them. So we can do all that. So we can make it stay, and then we can make it so that it will be there for the right time. We can animate the scale, which is a way of cheesing the scale. We can give it that definite position. We can disable the block looking at you like a normal one would. We can change the cut direction and change the color. Then we can assign tracks and stuff. So let's launch Beat Saber and look at that. And so there it is. There's our big chungus of a block. Look at that. And it's just going to sit there. And then it's gone. And so that is how you use note, and then also how you use the wall function in Scuffed walls. It's pretty simple, but I felt like it could be important to go over the stuff. And also this allows me to just kind of address that question about chroma that I saw. It's just basically animating color or using color. That does it all with chroma. That's why if you're going to use animate color, you need to make sure you have the requirements that people will know. Hey, install chroma. It's important. But I think that is all that needs to be covered today. But yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to message me, but I would recommend messaging the light designer. He probably has, he would probably know how to fix your issue more than I would, but I can help with like maybe the smaller stuff. If you need the docs, the Google Docs are going to be in the description along with the GitHub for Scuffed walls. And if you have any specific function you want me to cover next week, if not, it'll probably be tracks. And yeah, see you guys next time.